Morning, everybody. Welcome back to those who were here yesterday, and good to see the newcomers for today. I'm going to go on from the broad principles I was talking about yesterday, and I'm going to try and connect what we were discussing about strategy models of organizations to the whole idea of having key performance indicators and balanced scorecards for an organization. And what I'm going to show you is that simulation used to be seen to be difficult and complicated and expensive. Right? That is no longer true. It is actually easier to do this than it is to do what we have traditionally done with spreadsheet models for controlling our businesses. So I'm going to show you not only that that's possible, but also show you how we can use this for continual strategic management. You know, when I started out in strategy, you did an annual business plan, and then you put it on the shelf, and maybe you took it out again when it was time for the next business plan 12 months later. Well, you know, that was never good enough, was it? That was never what we should have been doing. And things change in our world too fast for that. You need to know how things are changing on at least a monthly, if not weekly, in some cases daily basis. So we need our models to keep up with that. We need our key performance indicators and balanced scorecards to keep up with that. You may remember from yesterday, those of you who were here, I was making this point that the strategy tools that we have tell us about our choices of who we're going to serve with what products and services and how we're going to do it. But we have to get to this time-phased action plan. What are we going to do? When are we going to do it? How much of it are we going to do across all functions in order to make the performance do what we want it to do? Only then do we get the financial and other results that we want, and we use these KPIs to tell us whether this is all working. The big problem is that we've got a huge disconnect here. Right? There is no way to get from the strategy tools that I've been teaching this stuff for 40 years, right? Those strategy tools are not, they're just not good enough. They don't help you get to this. So we need something that can, and what we do is we start here and we work back up to figure out what should be going on up here. We start with the performance that we're after. So I'm going to take an example actually from the KPI Institute's data set on key performance indicators for a particular kind of organisation. And as you know, Aurel and his colleagues have got hundreds of these things. So we've just picked one of them out. And the one we've picked out is for a medical clinic. Okay, why have we chosen the medical clinic? Well, because it's the kind of business that just about everybody is familiar with. We've all been patients, we all go to clinics, we know what these things are like, and we know what it's like for us as a customer to be treated by these organisations, all right? So we're familiar with this thing. So if we were to take the positioning for a medical clinic, what would that say? Well, it would say these are the target patients we're going to serve. We'll define our catchment area and we'll define the particular patients we want to serve in this clinic. We'll decide what services we want to offer. Some services will say they're too complicated, we'll leave that to the hospital. Others will say, no, we can do that in our clinic, and we will need the clinicians with the skills to offer those services. So that will tell us what number of clinicians we need, what types of clinicians. It'll tell us what equipment we need, what facilities we need. So we've made all those choices, we've written them down in a business plan, if you like. But then we need to actually implement the strategy. Yeah? We need to go and attract those patients. We need to deliver those services. We need the quality to be good. And we've got to do that in such a way that we're going to make a profit out of doing this. Or, you know, even if it's a not-for-profit organisation, it still has to be financially viable, right? It can't just keep losing money. So we need to implement this strategy. So here we are. This is the KPI dashboard for a medical clinic. This is page 1. It's the top level summary, and it's got lots of information on it. So what's it got? That chart up there is the rate of new appointments. How many appointments per day are coming into the clinic? That chart, the second one in the second row, is the number of cancellations. That's people calling up saying, terribly sorry, I know I've got an appointment for 3 o'clock this afternoon, I can't make it. This is reappointments. You have an appointment with the clinician says, go away and take these pills, and let me see you again in a week's time. That's a reappointment. We have the working hours. We have working hours for clinicians, and we have working hours for the other non-medical staff. We don't want people working too many hours because they might start making mistakes. We have walkouts. This is the number of people here who are waiting to see the clinician, and the waiting time is so long, they're saying, well, I've been here half an hour, and you know, I've got to pick the kids up from school. I'm terribly sorry, I've got to go. So these are people who are literally walking out of the clinic. This is the waiting time. So as you might expect, there's a similarity between some of these big numbers here and the walkouts here. You get people walking out when the waiting time is too long. This is the clinician caseload. How many patients is the average clinician in the clinic seeing each day? All right, that's the workload. Then, of course, there's a whole other set of financials about the revenue we're making and the costs and the profits. So that was an illustration from a particular case whose data has been put into that KPI report. So let's take a particular example of a clinic that's been doing somewhere around between 40 and 70 appointments per day. It's got 18 clinicians, and we're going to look at performance over a 60-day period. Right? 2 months. This is a 60-day period. So, back here, we had the red line here is operating profit, and we weren't making very much operating profit, so we've done some things to improve our profits about 30 days in, right? And one of the things that helped here was we got more revenue. Okay, our profit margin increased, and what did we do? Well, we did 2 things. We went and promoted the clinic to new patients. So we went out to an area perhaps where patients were not coming to clinic and saying, look, you ought to try our clinic, it's really good, you'll get great service if you come to us. And the other thing we did was we reduced the number of clinicians. We had 18, and we said, well, you know, the workload's not very high, the profits aren't very good, we can manage with only 15 clinicians instead of 18. So we reduced the number of clinicians. However, what's happened since is that there has been some lost revenue opportunities. So this is the blue line is the revenue we were getting, and the red line is the revenue we would have got if they had not had cancellations. Right? That's the missed revenue from people cancelling appointments or walking out. Okay, so you don't get revenue from a patient who cancels the appointment or they walk out. And here's the actual information. So here is the data on cancellations and walkouts. Remember, we had that on the KPI page, right? This is the data on what's happened, and you'll notice that there were no walkouts until day 40. The cancellations were quite low until day 40, but both numbers have started increasing. Why did that happen? Well, this appointment pipeline, this is a backlog of appointments that people want. So you're having to wait longer to actually get to see a clinician anyway. And all of this caused a fall in patient satisfaction. Where did the increased revenue come from? Well, the increased revenue came because we had more consultations per day. but there was a rising caseload for our clinicians. They were seeing about 6 to 7 patients per session, and that's risen to 12 to 15. So the clinicians are having to see more patients. And that has hit clinician morale. So clinician morale is now in trouble. Okay, so we've now got some data, some key performance indicator data over a 60-day period about what's been happening in this clinic. But how are these issues related? Demand, capacity, financial results, they're all connected to each other. So what's the system driving those performance outcomes? And what's causing that particular change in performance? And how can we manage it better? There are some good things there. The profits are better, and we're seeing more people. We've got more cases coming through. But there are some bad things there as well, like the rising cancellations and the fall in clinician morale. So we'd like to manage this thing better than it currently is. So we'll look forward to the next 30 days and see what we might do. So this is actually an extract from the working model which generated those results. And what we have here is we have a stock. We call this a stock of appointments pending. This is our backlog. And it's added to when we take new appointments from patients. The red line there is what we think would have happened if we didn't change anything. The blue line is what happened because we went out and promoted the clinic to new patients. Okay, so we've increased the rate of appointments coming in. Now, over here we've got the consultations per day that we're actually handling. And the reason the pending appointments is rising is because this is not keeping up with that. Okay? There are some other numbers missing, so which is why this is 100 plus and this is 50 odd, right? But there's something else going on, which I'll show you shortly. But that's the idea. We've got a stock of appointments. We see them, and the appointments get solved, and we get new appointments coming in. So what else is going on here? There's the new appointments flowing in. There's the consultations flowing out. And I'm going to show you the actual simulation in a moment. What I want you to think of every item there as a column in a spreadsheet. And the name is at the top of the column, and every day's data is in the rows below. Okay? Got that in your head? So we've got three spreadsheet columns of data here. All right? So this column here, let's call that C2, so appointments pending for day 2, is C1, that's appointments pending yesterday, plus A1, the new appointments that we've added, minus B1, which is the appointments with the consultations we've made. So the maths is appointments today is the number of appointments yesterday plus new appointments made minus consultations made, right? So that's what's actually happened to the rate of new appointments, and that's so now we've got the backlog rising. So what else is going on here? Well, of those consultations, a fraction need second appointments, and it's about 70%. So in addition to these first appointments, we've got repeat appointments. Do you remember that was on our KPI page too? We had the reappointments. That's that number, right? Where does it come from? Well, it is the number of consultations multiplied by the fraction that require a second appointment. Again, nothing mysterious here, it's just simple arithmetic. The appointments pending do not get done simply by doing the consultations. We've got cancellations. There's the cancellation rate down there, and walkouts. So our backlog of appointments is partly solved by people cancelling, right? That's kind of good news. Our appointment backlog's going down. Unfortunately, it's going down for a bad reason, which is people cancelling or people walking out. Why did people cancel or walk out? Well, because the lead time went up. Right? It took longer to actually get an appointment. If it takes you longer to get an appointment, it's more likely when the appointment comes that you're going to cancel. Right? Because I forgot I had to go and do this at that time. Right? And the too long waiting time up there caused patients to walk out, and patients cancel because of delays. And again, this is real simple maths. The appointment lead time here is the number of appointments pending divided by the consultation rate. Okay. Just simple math, simple arithmetic. I'm not even going to call it maths. So you can think of the calculations in here as being like the calculations you do in the cells in a spreadsheet, right? So repeat appointments per day, cell D2 is the number of consultations per day, which I think we said was B2, multiplied by the fraction needing reappointment, which might be E2, right? So think of the calculations going on in here as being just like those spreadsheet calculations. So the pressure increased. Why did this happen? Well, because we decided that we could manage with fewer clinicians. So it's no surprise that some things have gone wrong. So we've got fewer clinicians, but the number of consultations per day has gone up. How did that happen? Well, it went up because the caseload on each of the clinicians increased. Right? So that's the number of consultations divided by the number of clinicians. And because the caseload has gone up, you've seen clinician morale deteriorate. Everyone following the story? I hope I've chosen a familiar enough. So the clinician caseload nearly doubled. I mean, it didn't go up by 10%, it nearly doubled. So let's not be surprised that our clinicians are not feeling very happy about this. The patient waiting time increased, patient satisfaction fell. As you go out of the clinic, there's one of these little machines that says, how do you feel about your treatment today? Smiley face, not so smiley face, miserable face. More people are hitting the miserable face. That's what's going on there. Now, what about the financials? Well, the financials are pretty easy because we know that the actual revenue is the number of consultations we make multiplied by the fee per consultation. If this is a for-profit, if this was the United States, that would actually be money paid by the patient. In the case of the UK and many other countries, this would be paid for by the health service, right? But there is a fee for each consultation, which gives you your revenue. Here's your cost of each clinician. You take away the cost of clinicians and the overhead costs from your revenue, and there's your operating profit. So we've connected the working system of the clinic to the financial performance that's coming out of that. So we cut costs, we raise profits, but that profit increase, if you look, it went up, but now it's coming down again. Right? So it's not sustainable. We've improved profits, but not sustainably. So here is the system. There's 3 or 4 other items, but that's pretty much it. There's nothing else going on here. And all the KPIs are captured in this. There's the first appointments per day, there's the cancellations, there's the walkouts, there's the waiting time, there's the repeat appointments, there are some others on clinician morale and so on. And look, this is where they are. Right? It's exactly the same things. We've simply identified where they are in the system and connected it to the data. So now, what's going to happen over the next 30 days? Well, let's switch over to the model itself and figure out what that might be. So here is the model. So remember I said that this thing here, the repeat appointments, is the number of consultations multiplied by the fraction of patients. Click on that. And there is the formula. It is consultations per day multiplied by fraction of patients who need a reappointment. It's not D2 equals B12 multiplied by C$36. Yeah? It is consultations multiplied by fraction needing a reappointment. we talk English in this, or French actually, or any other language you like, but we talk human language here. We don't talk math references in this. So that is the situation, and you'll see we've got some data here. This number here is the operating profit, and that's the actual history of the operating profit up to today. And I guess we might want to see our profits increase. How do we think that might happen? Well, that might happen if we manage to make the number of consultations rise. So let's make that number of consultations rise. Okay, so we'll have an increase in consultations. Right? See, what I'm doing now, you see, is I'm setting business performance objectives. And these are not just, just kind of abstract lines on the graph. Those are the actual numbers, right? The column on the right is the blue numbers, and the column on the left is the red numbers. So back over here, that red line there is, we call it sketched data. It's data that we've either put in, well, it is data we've put in manually. We might have copied it from other systems, we might have sketched it with the mouse like I've just done. We might feed it automatically from other systems that we have, okay? But we've always got the two series. We've always got the real world data, either actual history or what we want the future to be, which is the red line, and we've got what the model is telling us should have happened. And what we want is we want the blue line to match the red line. If we've got the blue line to match the red line in the past, that says our model is good, it is working, it is correctly explaining how performance is happening. If the blue line, and going forward, if the blue line matches the red line, it says this is how we will meet the objectives that we've set for the future. And just down over here, here's the various charts that I put on the slides. Okay, so they just kind of, so there we go. There's that profit line. I just sketched that in. This is what we want the profit to do. So how do we think that might happen? Okay. Well, what we'll do is we'll do a little sensitivity run. So I'm now going to create a third line on these charts, and this is a sensitivity run. And I will just run it up till day 60. So you see there are green lines there. They're tracking all the blue lines. What they're doing is they're saying, I haven't changed anything, so the simulation is simply tracking what the model says up to the current time, and I'll stop it about time 60. Oh, hold on. No, it's only going to time 60. Right. We wanted to go forward, didn't we, to time 90. So we'll change the model now to go forward for another 30 days. Run it to time 60. So I've got two things that I think I could change here. The first thing I think I could change is the expected number of future appointments. So I want profits to go up, so I want revenue to go up, so I want consultations to go up. I've got to go for an increasing number of appointments. Now at day 60 it's running at something like 80 per day. So if I want more revenue, I'm going to have to make that higher. So maybe I can get that up to 90 per day. Now I know that my clinicians are under stress, and so 15 can't be the right number. I'm going to need more clinicians. How many more clinicians am I going to put in? Well, let me put that number up to 20. And I'll run forward for another, let's say I'll go forward for another week, 7 days. There's another 7 days. So what's happened? Not sure this is working, is it? Because I put the extra clinicians in, things initially went quite well. So you see here that there was a big drop in the number of cancellations. There was a drop in the appointment lead time. But things are not continuing to go well because the appointments backlog is beginning to rise again. It's beginning to increase. Now, why has that happened? Well, there was a little jump because of the extra appointments from the new patients we went for. But what's now happening is we've got more reappointments. Those people came in for their first appointment. 70% of them have to have second appointments. So we've got more than the increase that we thought we were going to have from that increase. So what's happening? Let's go forward another 7 days. Okay, we've gone forward another 7 days. So we've settled down. Appointments pending. We've got consultations up at a new rate. The walkouts initially disappeared, but then they've come back again. We've got people walking out. So maybe what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to add some more clinicians here. Maybe we need to go up to 25. I'll just run this through to the end. And we'll have a look at the summary of what's happened. So there's you remember our projection that we wanted for our operating profit? I sketched that in wrongly. It should have been over here. Well, we've increased our profit. Our profit margin's gone up. How's everything else? Well, patient satisfaction, not too bad. The cancellations, well, there's a bit of a cancellation rate going on there. The caseload per clinician, well, because we added so many more clinicians, we've brought the caseload down. And because we've brought the caseload down, our clinicians are feeling a bit better than they were. Okay? So we've just run a business sensitivity. Now, as time goes forward, what do? Well, on day 61, we put the next day's data in. It's day 62, we put the next day's data in. We continually manage the strategy with this. So, there we go. We expect a continued high appointment rate, so we add more clinicians, cancellations and walkouts fall, and satisfaction improves. Profitability is high, and now it's more sustainable, but the caseload and clinician satisfaction are still not so good. We will share this with you. This is a model that you can actually go and play with yourself. You can run this. You don't need to install anything. It runs in your browser. So just take a note of that URL, sdl.re/clinic1. I've included in it instructions on how to actually use the model, but you can go and run that yourself. So we can add other issues to this. We could add a realistic lead time to add clinicians. I was a magician here, right? On day 60, I said, I want 5 more clinicians. On day 61, I had 5 more clinicians. You can't do that in the real world. It would take a lead time to find new clinicians. We could add the likelihood that clinicians would be lost because of the extra workload. We could add the likelihood that we would lose patients, not just cancellations, but patients permanently leaving us because of our poor service. We could add the non-medical staff here to see what the workload is on them. We could add the treatment facilities. How many of our consultation rooms are occupied? Can we not handle the appointments that we need to because the consultation rooms are full? Right? We can add that to the model. And more. Now, just a word on balanced scorecards. This is a balanced scorecard for the medical centre. We've got the financial things at the top, we've got customer things in the middle, and internal processes and learning and growth stuff at the bottom. And the balanced scorecard captures some of those KPIs and some of the causality in it. But I have yet to find a balanced scorecard that does a proper, an accurate job on the causal relationships in structures. And it's not the fault of the management that balanced scorecards typically don't do that. We need a firmer foundation for balanced scorecards than we've currently got. And I would suggest that the simulation I've shown you is a much firmer basis for a balanced scorecard. So here's our system. The financials are over there on the right. The customer issues are all captured there down in that in the bottom left corner. The processes determine how effectively different parts of the system function, and learning is about how the effectiveness of parts of the system improves. But they don't happen to be in this model. I could easily add them. Right? I have structures for adding processes. So here's the bottom line. Simulating business systems and performance was difficult. There's no question about it. It was a difficult thing to do. But we've now got much better methods, we've got much better tools. And where we end up at is that simulation, it is easier to do this than to do what we currently do. This takes less time, less work, less effort than the spreadsheet-driven control systems that we typically rely on today. And what that gives you is it gives you a live, working, quantified business model that you can use for actually managing the system. So you've got two jobs as the strategic management team in an organisation. Your first job is to design the system so that it can work well. So set up all those processes and procedures to make the clinic so that it could work well. Your second job is then to manage the system, make the right choices so that it actually does perform well. And with the simulation models, that's what you can do. So some more resources there. So I guess we've got 5 minutes left for a few questions. So, yes?
Slightly unrelated. Does your system allow us to sort of play with our own data without using the clinics or something? Can we go into your system and incorporate our data?
You would have to construct the model for your organisation,
right.
But yes, you could do that. That's what the software is intended to do. I should say, by the way, the software is the last item on that list there. I'm not here to sell my software. What I'm here to sell you is that there's a much better way of doing things. There are 4 or 5 other softwares that do what this does. Okay, if you search for system dynamics software, you will find 4 or 5 other tools that do this. This just happens to be the one that we've developed for this purpose, but that's what you do. And we have quite a lot of templates. So just like the KPI Institute has got KPI and balanced scorecard templates for different kinds of organisation, we have model templates for many different kinds of business. Okay. All right, thank you very much.